Welcome to Wildlife at Tampa's Lowry Park Zoo. I'm Dr. Larry Kilmar, Vice President, Animal Science and Conservation. Today we're going to talk about nothing but elephants today. We're going to explain what we do in training, how we train our elephants, and the reasons behind all that. Now, the science that we use in elephant training is called operant conditioning. And basically, what that means is we're modifying a behavior that has been presented to us. So it's all very positive for the animal. There's nothing negative. There's never the word no used in our barn. And when you see the details of how we get to these different behaviors, I think you'll appreciate the amount of work that the staff puts into it. Now, as part of operant conditioning, which is the overall science of what we do, we also use what's called positive reinforcement protected contact. And protected contact means we're not in the same space with the elephant. We're outside that space. And the positive reinforcement, again, means the word no is never used. And it's at the animal's discretion. If the animal doesn't want to do the behavior, then we just move on. We give them a timeout and move on. So, for instance, put it in our terms. We were all raised that when we extend our hand for a handshake, most people will return that handshake. That's a type of operant conditioning. We've been conditioned to know that when we put our hand out for a handshake, someone will return that. What is the reward? The reward is the gratification that someone shook our hand. So that's a very simplistic version of what we're doing with our elephants. So today I'm with Matt, who's one of our trainers, and he's going to take us through this process and show us one of the training behaviors, and then start to break that down so that you understand what goes behind each one of those training sessions. So Matt, welcome. And Matt, who's behind us today?
Right now we have Jiggy, and she's working with one of my fellow trainers, Mike, and they're going to be training a behavior known as a trunk back. And it's just a simple behavior that we do to try to get their trunk on top of their head for things such as an oral exam or maybe administering medication.
And tell us a little bit about Majega. Give us your history on her.
Majega is about a 21-year-old female. She came from Swaziland. She was one of the elephants that we imported back in 2002. She is one of our 3 adult females here at the zoo, and she is probably our medium-sized elephant.
And by medium-sized, how many pounds are we talking about?
8,700 pounds.
Just 8,700 pounds. That's all, folks. So now let's go ahead and talk about what Mike is doing here.
Okay, so behind us you see that Mike is working with a target pole. He's using that target pole to get Majega to move her trunk into different places. She's been previously conditioned to touch the end of that red pole. You'll also hear him blowing a whistle, and this whistle right here is simply just what we call a bridge. A bridge, all that means is that the animal has completed the behavior, they've met the criteria, and we say it's a bridge because it's actually bridging the gap between the successful behavior and them receiving reinforcement. Like you explained earlier, we use positive reinforcement. So what Mike's feeding here is basically just diced up produce.
So that all sounds, I mean, you made that sound very easy and like everybody should know how to do that. And I know training my own dog is difficult. I don't think I could get my dog to do what you get your elephants to do. So step us through this slowly then. How did you get to the point where she is now presenting, for that bridge, for the behavior that you're looking for? Just take it step by step.
All right, so basically the first step is getting her to touch the end of the pole. And that's very simple. You actually just take the pole and you touch her trunk and you start feeding her for touching the trunk, or touching the pole. And then as you start to move the target pole away, she should follow the target pole. And once you have that conditioned, everything really moves along quickly from there. So then you take the pole and you start putting it on top of her head, or start doing what we call successive approximations, from basically baby steps, from where you see Mike is kind of halfway up. Eventually he'll be all the way on top of her head, and we'll start bridging her for having her trunk back. Then the tricky part is taking the target pole away. And so you kind of have to slowly fade the target pole away and get them to rely more on what we call the ST, or discriminative stimulus, which is basically just the cue. So he'll say trunk back, and then in her head that should trigger that her trunk goes on top of her head, and then you can fade the pole away.
Now, there's also concern that you can reinforce a negative behavior, something you don't want, if you're not bridging at the precise time. That's where your experience and your training comes in, so you got to be very careful of that.
Yeah, it's an important part of training is observing everything the elephant's doing, because while they're doing a trunk back, maybe they're kicking a back foot or something of that nature that you don't want to reinforce. So being very observant and reinforcing only what you want to see is really important, because in their head they don't know that you're only looking for the trunk. So the best way to do it is to be very observant so that you can communicate effectively to the animal that we're only interested in what their trunk is doing.
Okay, so now he's asking her to back up. I noticed he used his two hands, and she understands, I guess,
Yep.
through your training, that that means back up. What happens if she says, I'm not going to back up?
If she's not feeling like backing up, we simply just say that's all right. We'll move on, or we'll give her another chance to succeed. What we call it is least reinforcing stimulus, which is we just say LRS. That means if she decides that to not participate in the behavior, or she might perform the incorrect behavior, we'll administer an LRS, which is simply 3 to 5 seconds of us just standing very neutrally and giving her a just no response. There'll never be what we call a delta stimulus, a no, which would say you did the incorrect behavior, there's going to be no reinforcement. We just want to keep it as positive as possible.
Now she's starting to stand broadside to the bars. Now, folks, the purpose of these training procedures is that it's all part of our management plan. It eases, makes what we do management-wise very easy. We can look at an animal completely, side to side. We can look in their mouth. We can do blood draws. We can check their feet. All these things are necessary in managing elephants. So you might say, well, why don't you do that with rhinos and other things? Well, we do similar trainings with rhinos, but elephants require some very unique management requirements, and so that just aids in all of that. So as I've been talking, she's been turning around, and again, Matt, I've noticed that Mike has been using his hand full on the trunk. Explain what that's all about.
Well, we call that a hand target, and that's actually something that's rather rare in the elephant management field. We like to use our hand and have them target to our hand so that we can basically always know where their trunk is. The trunk is the most dangerous part of the elephant, so it's nice to always know where it is. But even more importantly than that, it's a great barometer for the elephant's attitude at that time. If the elephant's nervous because we're trying something new, or the elephant might be agitated because it just came out of a bad social situation, we can really tell that by how tense or loose their trunk is, or maybe they're twitching or they're shaking. And that's a great indicator for us if maybe we should step back and give them some time, or they're really in the zone right now, we can keep moving on.
So I mean, some of it has to do with body language, but again, that trunk is really the central part of our entire environment, and you, like you say, you can tell so much by that. Well, great, Matt. Thank you very much for this. This is just the start of what we're going to show you today about elephant training. I'm now with Chris Massaro. He's the animal care manager for Elephants Rhino, and his bigger job, if you can believe that, is our operations manager in the animal department. Welcome, Chris. We're going to show you a health assessment on our elephants now, but before we get into that, what's an elephant eat each day? How much?
Well, we're looking at getting them to consume approximately 2 to 3% of their body weight. Now, Majega back here, she's around 8,700 pounds, so you can imagine how much that is.
Wow.
So.
Well, again, I'm frightened just buying dog food for my dog. I can't imagine feeding an elephant. And, of course, then when you feed an elephant, you got to clean up after it, and that's tons of this each day, right?
Absolutely, and literally tons. I think we actually had just for the fun of it, we had staff actually measure out how much output an elephant has in a day, and one of our elephants actually had about 300 pounds. So.
Wow, I like that output. I've got to remember that's a politically correct way of saying the other word. Well, again, we're back with Majega, and we're now going to start what we call health assessment. And we do these on a regular basis. This is part of our protocols. It's important for us to look at these animals on a regular basis, make sure that, we don't see any lesions, any foot issues, does their dental work look good? All of that's important. You catch anything on the front end, quickly we can solve the problem, very much like you and I going to a doctor on a regular basis. But we do these, how often do you do these health assessments?
We actually call these DEAs, or daily elephant assessments. So we're checking out these elephants on a daily basis. And really the point of all this is, if you or I have an injury or we're uncomfortable, we can let somebody know that. By the time an elephant may show signs that it may have a foot issue or something like that, we may have a bigger problem on our hands than we want. So we do these daily elephant assessments on these guys so that we can catch any issues that might arise before they become a problem.
Very good. Okay, walk us through what Mike is doing here.
So the first thing Mike's going to do is ask for a front foot. And what we do a lot of foot care here at the zoo. Around 90% of the problems elephants can have in facilities and zoos are related to the foot. So foot care is extremely important. Matt's going to go up and rinse this foot off so we can get a nice clean look. So what we're looking at is we're looking at the nails and we're looking at the foot pad. If we can get a good look at that foot pad, you can see you got sort of some lines there, and what we want the foot to look like is really like the tread on the bottom of a sneaker. So you should see those nice grooves, and when we do foot trimmings, what we're looking to do is making sure that none of those grooves, that the skin on the pad is growing over the top, because you don't want to trap any dirt or debris or anything like that in the foot groove. So you want to have a nice tread just like the bottom of your sneaker. And also when you're looking at the nails, you want to have a nice clean nail. You can see we've got some minor cracks on there, and those are fine. Sometimes they're pressure related and we got to clean out the bottom of the nail. But we do filing and trimming of the nails every day too. So they get routine pedicures here at the zoo.
Well, it looks like her feet are in great shape, and that, of course, is a result of looking at them daily, so we don't end up with any issues. Now, elephants walk, many miles in a day in the wild, and they also walk great distances in these exhibits as well. I mean, they're back and forth all the time. While they spend a great deal of time eating each day, they're also moving during that process. So what's he going to check now, Chris?
Right now he's going to check a back foot. So you saw the front feet, and obviously we got to take a look at all 4 feet to do a full evaluation. So we went ahead, we trained Majega to do a 180-degree turn here, and I'll ask for a back foot, and there she goes. That's the right foot. And we'll go ahead and do the same thing. We'll get a little rinse there. And basically evaluating the same thing. Taking a look at the foot pad, taking a look at the nails, making sure everything looks good. She's nice and comfortable, and we're good to go.
So now you begin to see that the first session we talked about training, why it was important to have Majega turning, backing up to us, going to the side. You can now see that now taking this to the next step, that facilitates us looking at her feet. And you can see why that turning and all of the training and shaping of those behaviors becomes so important. Otherwise, we never get a good look at their feet or their body in general. And now he's going to, what's he doing now?
So we just had her on a lean-in, and when we do that, we get them used to sort of just us touching them. So if we have to do treatments, they're desensitized to us getting our hands on them. We also take a good look at their body condition, so we can grade, does the animal's body condition look good? To follow that up, obviously we have a scale. We can take weights on them, make sure they're maintaining their weights.
How often do we weigh, Chris?
Ideally, we weigh once a month. There's plenty to weigh them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, an elephant can lose 500 pounds, and visually we can't see that. So it's important to know if they're gaining or losing weight. A pregnant female, that's an important number to be going up in the right direction. Losing weight could be maybe there's some medical condition that we just don't see right now. And that's also facilitated by our ability to pull blood on these animals at any time, and that's also important. Again, we're getting a blood panel so we know if there's any other issues that the elephant might be dealing with that we just can't see. I mean, Majega seems to be, very compliant to all this. Obviously, she's well trained in the sense that she likes this. She enjoys
Absolutely.
this.
I mean, that's part of, the philosophy behind our training anyway, is to always make the interactions between the elephant caretaker and the elephant positive and reinforcing relationship and interaction so that the animals are engaged, they want to participate. Next thing we'll do here is an oral inspection.
So this is going to the dentist.
This is going to the dentist. So Majega is going to give us a nice open, wide mouth, and Mike can look in there. And what he's inspecting is not only the tongue, gums, but also the teeth. The teeth are extremely important for elephants. As far as the grinding down hay, browse, sticks, leaves, all that sort of stuff when they consume, they need to have these nice strong teeth. And the dentition on an elephant is really unique based on some other species. So they don't new teeth don't grow in from the bottom and push the teeth out. It actually moves more like a conveyor belt. So the teeth are growing in from the back of the mouth and pushing teeth out through the front. And they'll do that throughout their whole lives.
And we find teeth in the exhibit periodically, don't we? And some of the literature indicates they might have 5 to 6 sets of teeth in a lifetime. So again, very important to keep those teeth healthy because it's all about how they grind their food. And they can eat small trees, so they've got to have these big grinding pads in order to keep that food grinded down small enough so they can ingest it. And elephants are pretty inefficient when it comes to their food. Something like 70% of what they eat, they evacuate. So that's why they eat all the time. That's why they can deforest a small area of Africa in a matter of weeks, because it's this constant having to keep their energy levels up. And again, we see Mike reinforcing all of those behaviors. So she did everything we wanted her to do in this particular session. And she knows that. She knows she's going to get. You probably don't call this a jackpot, but it's something similar.
In a way it is. We went through the routine. She did everything we asked her to do. The routine went very well, and we're giving her a little extra reward for doing so well.
Well, there's an elephant assessment. That's like going to the doctor for an elephant. I'm inside the elephant barn, inside a stall, and we use these as the transition point each day when we're managing the elephant collection. They have access to our yard 24/7. But we have to bring them in here when we set up the yard each day. So as you can see, it's a pretty roomy facility. It also has an extremely tall roof because elephants can reach way up. It's a concrete building, and we built it that way for a couple of reasons. One, it has to be substantial for elephants. But in Florida, with all of the weather that we have, hurricanes included, we can also use this facility if we have to sequester other animals during a hurricane category 2, 3, or 4. So this barn has double duty. So really tall roof, really strong building, and big steel bars back there because elephants can push on anything and knock it over. So this actually just ends up being a transition point for elephants. They're only in here for a few hours a day. They can come in at night if they wish, and the rest of it is just for our management needs. So we're in the barn now with Ellie, one of our oldest female elephants. Give us a little history on Ellie.
Yeah, Ellie's about 28, 29 years old now. She came to us back in 2002, 2003. We brought her in when we brought in the Swazi animals, and actually were able to set her up as a matriarch in the group.
Now we have her in what's called our elephant restraint device, and basically what this does is just prevents the animal from completely turning around. Because when we have to do blood draws and other kinds of minor medical procedures, we just don't want the elephant moving too much, injure our staff, veterinarian, or the elephant. So right now, we're going to do a blood draw on Ellie, and this requires stationing the animal in the restraint device. And then, Chris, start to walk us through how this goes.
So what we have now are the trainers have positioned Ellie where she needs to be in order to get the blood draw. And one of our veterinary technicians, Michelle's coming up here, and she's going to show you where we pull the blood. And the blood basically we get from the back of the ear, and she's just going to do some approximations to sort of show you guys how we do it. But if you take a look at that back ear, you see all these blood vessels there. And one of the reasons they have so many there is they actually can use that to cool their body. So it makes for a great place for us to do these voluntary blood draws. And you can see Ellie's fine for it. And during the procedure, again, you can see again, part of our training philosophy is we want all the things we do to be 100% voluntary by the animal. So Ellie has the option of choosing whether to participate in this procedure or not. There's nothing keeping her from just walking away if she doesn't want to participate.
Well, the back door is open, so she could have just backed away and said, I don't want to do this anymore. Something probably we all do when we go to the doctor to get a blood sample. We probably aren't as compliant as Ellie is. But again,
I'm sure the doctor closes the door on us if we're in there.
I'm positive. They do for me anyway. So again, you see how we've now stepped through this. Ellie is again on station with the keeper, getting a food reward. You heard the whistle blow. That's the reinforcement that she's doing the right thing during the blood draw. So you can see that each one of these training steps starts to build on top of the other one, so that now we're getting into the medical side of treating the animal, and it's a very favorable experience for the elephant. The elephant's not objecting to anything here, and if she were objecting, she just backs right out and leaves. So it just, you look at the animal, you look at the staff, and everything's very calm and collected and very organized. So And you notice how large that ear is. I mean, that's a big ear to be pulling out. That itself is a challenge just to get her to do that.
Absolutely.
How long did it take you to train her for a blood draw?
It really depends on the animal. So Ellie's pretty good. She's got an older animal. She's got a long history of training. So she's been through this process before. We just had to adapt her to our style. So with Ellie, it may have taken just a couple weeks. Some animals, it may take longer than that. It's not just necessarily the training of the behavior, but it's also the building of the relationship with the animal. You know, they have to know that they're comfortable with what you're doing, that we're not doing any harm. You know, they're going to be fine through the procedure, and at the end, they're going to get rewarded for it.
Now, you established a primary trainer for each elephant, correct? So you have a primary and a secondary trainer. And what's the philosophy behind that?
The philosophy behind that is that both elephant and trainer really know each other very well. You know what to expect from that animal. The animal's different little quirks, maybe how they learn better. They get really comfortable with that particular person. We're actually at a point now where every elephant still has a primary, but all the different trainers are able to train different behaviors with the elephants. Now, for the more what we would call complex behaviors, or behaviors that require a stronger relationship between trainer and elephant, like a blood draw or maybe a reproductive assessment, we still make sure that primary trainer is that person working with that animal.
No, it's terrific. You also notice in the bottom of the elephant restraint device is the scale. That's where we weigh the animal, as Chris said, at least once a week, and that's all recorded digitally so that we can look at that. And the elephants go through this every day, so this is no big deal for them. It's like us walking out the door every day. They know this is just part of the procedure. So now you've seen a basic training session, you've seen the assessment of an elephant, and now you've seen a very minor medical procedure, a blood draw. So you see, again, how each one of these things builds on top of the other. Thank you, Chris. This is great. Thank you very much. Now we're at the other side of the restraint device, and you'll notice there is a device inside the elephant restraint device. And Chris and his team have developed this. We're the only zoo that does this right now. And what do you call this thing that looks like a hockey net, basically?
Well, you can through this whole event, you can see we use a lot of acronyms, but we call this one the EarAdam, and basically it's the Elephant Reproductive Assessment Device. So this allows us to do obviously reproductive assessment, make sure the animal's healthy. Lots of people have several different types of doctors they can go to. Here the veterinarian has to play all those doctors, including gynecologist. Right. So we do have to make sure the animal's healthy reproductively, and we can assist with artificial insemination if we need to here. Also, if we need to do ultrasounds, as you can imagine, very difficult to get a good look in an elephant for all the internal organs. Most of the time we've got to do a rectal ultrasound. It just gives us a much better look at what's going on with the animal inside.
So what you're seeing here is you notice the elephant has both left and right rear legs straddling the EarAdam. And what this does here, this is the revolutionary part of this. In the past, elephants would have to be restrained in order to get the legs separated far enough to where you can do an ultrasound or you can do a rectal exam. This just allows the animal then to straddle this. The animal is not restrained in any way, shape, or form. This animal can actually, again, walk out of the front end of this restraint device if she doesn't want to. So Chris, show us then how you or the veterinarian would be positioned in this.
So I'll go ahead and step up here and sort of show you what we would do. Again, this is based on our training philosophies and how we wanted to manage the elephants here at Lowry Park Zoo. So we came up with an idea. We'll first pose the question, how do we do this safe for the staff and comfortable and 100% voluntary by the elephants? So we came up with this design as basically, in a way, a stirrup for an elephant. The back in. So I'm going to go ahead and get down here and show you. So the veterinary is doing a procedure. He's now in a safe area. He can work from right where I am right now, not worry about getting kicked by the elephant or sat down on. He's still protected and has full access to a reproductive track that you would have to assess.
And she will now stand for how long while we're doing assessments?
Longest we've had her stand is probably right around a half an hour, comfortably. And again, at any time, should she decide she doesn't want to participate, she's got the option of walking away.
Right. And again, interesting, you hear the whistle in the background. She's getting reinforced for, standing there steady. You'll also notice that Mike has her tail because, again, you don't want to get swished by that tail. That can hurt you. But again, Ellie's not stressed at this point. She's standing there. You can see Chris is doing some palpations at this point. Again, reinforcing the fact that she's standing steady for this. And if she said, I'm tired and I want to walk away, she'll just walk away. So again, taking what is a very necessary reproductive exam and analysis to a level now where the elephant is completely in charge. The elephant is not under stress, is not controlled in any other way but by food and the fact that she has she knows she's going to get a reward. So it's just a great technique that we're very proud that this staff has developed this, and we are the only zoo right now that is using this device, so we're very proud of it. So now you've seen training, you've seen assessment, you've seen a blood draw, and you've seen a reproductive exam, or at least the mock-up of a reproductive exam. Standing on the tram road between the main exhibit and what we call the bull yard. And behind me you'll see our adult male elephant, Studla. He's one of the animals that we brought in from Swaziland in 2003. You notice also we have Kenya Impala in the yard. This is what we would call a mixed exhibit. And the Impala have been in here for several years now. It took about 2 to 3 months to get them habituated to the exhibit. Now, the interesting part is those Impala can jump out of this exhibit if they wish, but they know where their boundaries are. They're comfortable, they get good food, there's really no pressure for them to leave, and the elephants and Impala get along just fine. So, Chris, about how big are these 2 yards combined?
We're looking at approximately about 3 acres here of space, outdoor space for the elephants.
That's nice. I also noticed the grass in the exhibit. Very fortunate here in Florida to have the ability to, it rains so much in the summertime and a little bit in the wintertime that we get a nice grass cover. So it looks very natural. Looks like you would see what you would see in the wild. And so we change the grouping of the elephants. We have some in the bull yard sometimes, some in the exhibit.
Yeah, we do you know, as natural a mix as we can. We like to move the bull in and out of the herd. We'll mix up and make sure everybody gets socialized together. Got a little bit of a, you know, you can call it a little bit of a fission fusion type structure as well. But basically, want to make sure every elephant socializes, every elephant gets some time with one another.
I mean, bull elephants don't stay with the females in the wild all the time. They move off. They come in when it's time to breed. They then move off, and oftentimes we'll group up together. Bulls will be together. The other part of this exhibit is that you can see this from the public side as well, not just from the tram. And it gives a very nice look. If you look across the exhibit, you see giraffe on one view, you see elephants and impala on the other side. And so our elephants are out on this exhibit about, what, 20 plus hours a day maybe?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we try to give them as much space to roam around as possible. They have access all the time. I mean, really the barn is used for shelter for them. Yeah. Of course, if there's severe weather, they've got a safe place to go during severe weather. Outside of that, they've got the opportunity to come out and roam around as they would naturally.
And I understand you can call each elephant by its name, and that elephant will come over, but the other ones don't. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, part of the training process. Make sure they're aware of their names, so when we call them...
So look what we found in the exhibit. We were talking about a tooth earlier, and sure enough, here's part of an elephant tooth. Now, you notice the cupping and the crowning on this tooth. This is a pretty well-worn tooth, as they would say, but you see how broad that surface is compared to my hand, and that's the constant grinding that goes on from small tree limbs to you name it. And again, nature's just provided this great mechanism to where when this tooth is no longer value and too worn down, it moves out of that jaw, as Chris was saying, like a conveyor belt, and the next new fresh set of teeth are in place. So you can see that's a lot of wearing on that tooth, and probably no longer of any value for the crushing that an elephant needs when it's eating tree material. Today you've seen the width and breadth of our elephant training program and what goes into managing this important species. So the next time you're at Tampa's Lowry Park Zoo, stop by and see the elephants.